So today we're going to talk about one of the most legendary brands on the planet. But this isn't just a story about fancy cars. It's a tale of impossible odds and how a name that basically screams luxury was actually born from the absolute harshest poverty you can imagine. I mean, when you hear the name Rolls-Royce, what comes to mind, right? Pure, unadulterated opulence. We're not just talking about cars here. These things are masterpieces on wheels. They're the dream ride for, the richest and most powerful people on Earth.
Okay, but get this. What if I told you that the genius engineer behind that very icon of wealth actually spent his childhood in grinding poverty? We're talking forced into child labor just to stay alive. It's this wild contradiction that makes the story so incredible.
All right, let's get into it. The whole story starts with one man, Henry Royce. He was born in England way back in 1863. And honestly, the kind of hardship he was born into is, well, it's almost impossible for us to wrap our heads around today. Just look at this timeline for a second. At 4 years old, his dad's business fails and the whole family is homeless. By 9, his father is gone and little Henry has to start working, slinging newspapers just to help his mom. I mean, his future looked totally bleak, right? But then, at 14, something shifts. An aunt, who must have seen something special in him, managed to get him an apprenticeship at a railway company. And this was it. This was his one and only shot. And you better believe he did not waste it. That single opportunity, it was like it lit a fire under him. He'd already learned the hard way that he could only rely on himself. So Royce just buried himself in work. Day and night, he was teaching himself everything: engineering, math, electronics. He was basically forging himself, like a blacksmith, from this kid with absolutely nothing into a seriously skilled engineer. And this just shows you his incredible drive. By 17, he's a fully capable mechanic. Then, with just 20 pounds saved up, which was practically nothing, he starts his own company, F.H. Royce & Company. He got into manufacturing electrical stuff, doorbells, bulb holders, and you know what? He was really, really good at it. For a while, things were looking up. But you know how these stories go. Just when it seems like he's made it, a crisis hits. And it wasn't a small one. It threatened to wipe out everything he'd built. But here's the twist. This massive failure was exactly what he needed to find his real purpose. So here's what happened. You have this brutal 1-2 punch. First, a flood of cheap competition from Germany and America just tanks his electronics business. The stress from that completely wrecks his health. So his doctor tells him, hey, buy a car. Get out and get some fresh air. Simple enough, right? Well, the car he buys, this French model, is just awful. It's noisy, it's unreliable, and for a perfectionist like Royce, it was more than just an inconvenience. It was a personal insult, this shoddy piece of work. And that frustration, that was the spark that changed everything. Say, a guy like Royce, he just couldn't stand mediocrity. He couldn't just let it go. So he basically said, fine, if I want a car done right, I'm gonna have to build it myself. And that one decision, that's what put him on a collision course with the one person who could take his genius and show it to the entire world. And this is so key to understanding him. For Henry Royce, good enough was a foreign concept. He didn't just tinker with that French car. Oh no. He took the whole thing apart, piece by piece, and re-engineered it from the ground up. He made it better in every single way he could think of. The result? A car that was quiet, light, and, this was the big one, incredibly reliable. He hadn't just fixed a car, he'd built the best car in all of Britain. Well, building the best car in Britain gets you noticed, and it caught the attention of a man named Charles Rolls. Now, Rolls was the complete opposite of Royce, a wealthy aristocrat, a showman, a passionate driver, and a very successful car salesman. And when he saw what Royce had built, he was just floored. He ran back to his business partner and basically said, I've done it. I have found the world's greatest engineer. And really, it was the perfect partnership. It was like the brains and the voice. You had Royce, the quiet, obsessive engineering genius, and you had Rolls, the charismatic salesman who knew everyone and knew how to sell. So in March of 1906, they made it official. Rolls-Royce Limited was born. The new company took off like a rocket. They were making a name for themselves fast. But they were heading straight into a decade that would throw everything at them. Unimaginable personal tragedy, a world war, things that would threaten to tear the whole company apart. But before all that chaos came their masterpiece. It was a 6-cylinder model they launched late in 1906. It was so impossibly smooth, so whisper quiet that it earned a nickname, the Silver Ghost. And this car wasn't just another model off the line. It was perfected. It was about to become a legend. And to prove just how good it was, they put the Silver Ghost through this insane endurance test. Think about this. They drove it nonstop, day and night, for 24,000 kilometers. That's more than halfway around the entire planet. And it did it without a single major breakdown. That was completely unheard of back then. It was the ultimate proof of Royce's obsession with making things reliable. But being tough was only half the magic. They also claimed this car was almost perfectly silent. So here's a question for you. How do you prove that? How do you prove a car is quiet, back in an age before you had all the fancy sound-measuring gadgets we have today?
Well, they came up with this stroke of genius, a brilliant bit of showmanship. They called it the whisper test. Here's what they did. They'd take a coin, balance it on its edge right on the car's hood, or bonnet, as they'd say. Then they'd start the engine and drive the car. And the coin wouldn't fall. The engine was so perfectly balanced, so free of vibration, that the coin just stood there. It was simple, it was visual, and it left people absolutely speechless.
But right at the peak of their success, disaster. A series of them. First, in 1910, Charles Rolls, the face of the company, was tragically killed in a plane crash. He was only 32. Then, just a year later, Henry Royce himself gets diagnosed with cancer, and his doctors tell him he has just months to live. And if all that wasn't enough, in 1914, World War I breaks out, and just like that, the entire market for luxury cars evaporates. Gone.
I mean, everyone thought that was it. Game over for Rolls-Royce. But Royce, that same scrappy survivor who delivered newspapers as a kid, he refused to let his company die. He miraculously fought his illness, and he got to work. He pivoted. He took that incredible Silver Ghost chassis and turned it into armored cars for the desert and ambulances that saved thousands of lives. And here's the real game changer. He started making aero engines. And these weren't just any engines. They were so good they gave British pilots a crucial advantage in the war. So that pivot, that move into aviation, it didn't just save the company. It secured its entire future. When the war was over, Rolls-Royce came out stronger than ever. Its reputation for perfection wasn't just about luxury anymore. It was forged in the heat of battle. They were now ready to build a legacy that would last, well, more than 100 years.
And they did just that. They launched the legendary Phantom to reclaim the top spot in luxury cars. They even bought their rival, Bentley, in 1931. Sir Henry Royce finally passed away in 1933. He ended up outliving his doctor's grim prediction by 20 years. And today, yeah, the company is owned by BMW, but that brand, the one he built from absolutely nothing, it's still the ultimate symbol of perfection. It's a direct reflection of that one poor boy's refusal to accept anything less.
I mean, what a story, right? It starts with a homeless kid selling newspapers and ends with a global icon for luxury. It just goes to show you that a relentless drive for excellence, even one that's born from the toughest imaginable life, can create something that, well, that lasts forever. It really makes you think, doesn't it? What is that fire inside a person that makes them not just want to succeed, but to achieve absolute perfection?